Hello everyone, welcome to Sharmit. In this session, we are going to talk about another very important topic related to MCP. So if you remember, in our last session, we talked on theoretical part where we discuss what is MCP, how many types of components or how many components are there with the MCP, right? So this session is in the continuation of the same, where we will be mainly talking about how to establish a connection between a client and server. Okay, so for that I am utilizing the Python language. You can use any language, but remember the syntax would be depending on that language only. Okay, but the overall concept of MCP would be the same. So when you are going to start the practical thing, I prefer to go at least with the Python for the initial days, because this is something a common with every developer. Mostly people know the Python. That's why I'm using this Python, so that you can utilize it easily. Okay, so for that you just need to install your Python, the basic Python installation process you can follow, and then you have to follow these steps which we are going to discuss from today's session. Okay, so by the end of this session we will be able to understand how to establish a connection between the MCP server and client. Okay, so for that you can see here I have created two files. One is mcp2-client.py and server.py. so firstly I'll walk you through the server file, and to make the things easier for you, I have created a comments in a way that works really as a notes for you. Okay, so before we discuss these notes and example, I just want to recommend one thing, that if you have not watched the previously released session, please do refer the sessions in a sequence, because they all are in proper sequence and sync. So if you follow it sequentially, then things would be much more easier for you, because for time being we are just mainly focusing on server and client connection. But prior to that you should know what is MCP protocol, what are the components of MCP protocol, why do we really need MCP protocol. Okay, alright, so let's get started and see how we are utilizing how we are establishing a connection between the client and server. So for that I have created two files, where one file will act as a server and another one will act as a client. So firstly we are discussing about the mcp2 server.py. So firstly I'm here I'm importing one tool, that is FastMCP. Now what is this FastMCP? So this is nothing but a tool that will help us to build the MCP server easily. Okay, so it will just help us to create us the MCP server. Now after that we have this MCP equal FastMCP and the name of the server. So with this line what we are doing, we are just creating the first server for our system. Okay, so we have created this MCP FastMCP server, and we have assigned the name as my first server. So whenever you want to use this server, you will refer this name for its identity. Clear? After that we have this @mcp.tool. so I'm sure you know about the basic Python function, right, which is like this def hello. But if you want to make that function as a tool, then in that case you will use this special line, which is @mcp.tool. Okay, so once it is added, then you are good to use this define hello, which is nothing but a method that will return string output, because we want to make it very simple, right? So I just returned a string from here, that is hello. This message is coming from MCP server. Okay, even though we are not going to call this function also, okay, this tool also, because for this session we just want to see how to establish a connection between MCP server and client. Okay, so we just created this tool that we will use later maybe in the next session, but for now we are not going to use it. And then this part is would be the common for we all know that this part just runs the server, but only when we run this file directly. Okay, not at the time when it is imported somewhere else. So that's the main thing. Okay, so with that I think server part is clear. Like we just imported FastMCP, then we created our first server with the name my first server, then we added one tool with the function hello. So whenever someone call this tool, it will process this hello function and return this message hello. This message is coming from MCP server. That's it. Okay, so I think server part is clear. Now let's go to client part, and here we will see what and how we are going to implement this. So here firstly I'm importing one async.io. okay, async.io lets the Python do things asynchronously. Okay, and it is needed because at the time of talking to the server we know that it will take time, right? So we don't want to we don't want the program to freeze while waiting. Okay, and for that it should be asynchronously working, right? So that's why we are using this we are importing this async.io. Remember one thing, if you find these things difficult, don't worry, because for the initial few sessions you will find it difficult, but by the time you will learn all the syntax, you will find out like, okay, these are the code that we have to repeat anyhow. So in that case it will not cause issue. Okay, so we have imported async.io. Then these are the some tools, or you can say the MCP building blocks that we need for a client. Like from MCP we are using client session, StdioServerParameters, MCP Client.studio, import studio client. So these are the basic thing that we will be utilizing. Okay, after that we have this async def main, which is nothing but a main function, and this will tell the client how to start the server. Okay, here we are passing two things. One is command, that is Python, that means we want to run it using the Python command, and second is argument, which is server.py, or maybe you can write it as MCP02 server.py. That means we want to run the file called MCP server, MCP02 server.py. Okay, so this is just a command with a hash, and this is the actual code. So server params, and then we write studio server parameters, then command as Python, and argument is MCP server.py. That's it. Okay, so once it is established, now you are good to use it here. So after that we are using this async with studio client. So this line actually starts the server in the background, and it opens the communication channel like read for receiving message and write for sending the message. So you have to write exactly like this: async with studio client server params as read write. Okay, then we have client session. You can see here this line, this client session is just like a phone call between a client and the server. Why? Because it will tell the server, and using this like we can just initiate the discussion. Okay, so async with client session read and write as a session. So okay, and after that we are using this session. So you can see here this is the handshake step. So here basically client says that I want to talk, and server replies I'm ready. Okay, so this is the main line, await session dot initialize. So when we execute this line, it will establish a connection between the server and the client, and after that if this line got executed, if we reach this line, that means the server connection is successful. Okay, so it will show connection successful. The client and server can now talk to each other. That's it. Okay, and after that this part is like this: make sure that code only runs when we execute the file directly. Now how to test this? So to test this, you can just simply execute the file Python MCP02 client.py, and then simply press enter. So once you press enter, it will generate the output. You can see connection successfully. The client and server can talk now to each other. Remember, there are lots of other validation kind of thing we can implement here, obviously, but I don't want to make it complex for you, because for now we are not learning coding, we are just understanding how actually MCP work. That's it. That's the main goal for our session. Okay, that's why I'm trying my best to make it very simple for you, so that you can easily identify what is MCP and how it is working. Okay, so yeah, this is how the things work. And for now some of you might be thinking like, why we are not calling that tool which we created, because that part I want to teach you separately in the next session. For now we just created a server and a client, and we established one connection between them. Okay, got it? Now before we proceed to the next session, there is one question for all of you, and today's question is what is the FastMCP? Okay, you have to just write in a very simple way what is the actual definition of FastMCP in a simple terms. Okay, why we are asking these question? Because when you write the answer of these question, let's say if someone don't know the answer, they can directly refer it from the comment section. So it will help you to recall your questions, recall your concept, and also it will help other. If someone don't know the answer, they can simply refer it through the comment section. Okay, and also when you are answering these questions, it gives me the notification and it tells me that you guys are following this series, and on the basis of number of comments I will publish more session to this series. Okay, so yeah, that's all for today. And today we just learned about how to establish a connection between the client and server. In the next session we will discuss how to call a tool through this application. Okay, so yeah, that's all for today. See you in the next session with new topics. So thank you for watching Tech Sharmit.